Chuck, let me ask you. We're gonna go ahead and kiss up a little bit because it's something that we've talked with from Len Casper, Jonathan Hood, all the amazing people we've seen in Chicago who have called games like Zach Sadman. We've had the pleasure to talk to them, and somebody like you who's seen a few generations of broadcasters and athletes come through Chicago, whether it's been on the court or off the court. How important has it been for you? And coming out with this book, always a pleasure to how important is it to you to know how beloved and how admired you are from the community, from people who ball to the people who watch the ball?
Wow. Well, thank you. That's a very nice compliment. I honestly, I don't think about that much just because I'm in the moment. And for example, when the Bulls played the Pacers, I was in the moment. Right now, I'm in the moment talking with you and your staff. So, I mean, listen, when it's all said and done, my whole element of my foundation of my heart, my life, is to give back, and that is something that I attribute to my parents. When I was a little boy, my mom really encouraged us to volunteer at all levels, no matter what age. And so I think because of that, I learned the importance of understanding that we're really all in this together. I mean, I have walked in your shoes. One day you're going to walk in my shoes. And one day in the near future, you're going to extend a hand to someone who says, hey, you know what? How do I get involved in sports broadcasting? And really, it's a circle of life. And that's how I approach it. I mean, I love my job. I'm very passionate. I love the Bulls. I love the NBA. I admire the players. I know how hard it is to win just one single NBA game. And the greatest admiration I have for coaching and for playing and for the front office, it's still competitive. But at the end of the day, there's only one champion. And then you go right back at it in the off season to prepare for the following year. And the same thing as a broadcaster, as soon as the Bulls play their last game, and by the way, I'm counting on the last game one day to end in late June. Great for all of us with a win. But I love it so much, but I love people very, very much.
And it's funny because you bring up the ultimate sentiment that one day we will be hearing Chuck call a game late since in June, and it'll be glorious, just like so many heard Neil Funk and so many greats before them. And I can't wait till you have your shining moment that you've had so many in your career. And I think we all speak here, the WrestleMania moment, the Super Bowl moment, heck, the NBA Finals moment. It's on its way for Chuck Swirsky, and I can't wait for it to be on a CD for me. Just like so many of your memories are in a book. As always, a pleasure is out for the millions and millions of the Chuck Swirsky nights to get a chance to listen to one of the best do it. And we could talk about on the court all we want, and you do so many great hits, and you do stuff around the Chicago media, both stuff that people hear and don't hear, just to kind of connect with people. And I wonder how important it is for you not just to see people succeed on the court, but how much pleasure have you gotten to see some of these young men and some of these women who are on these staffs and heck in women's college sports and in women's high school basketball locally, to see them succeed off the court? Because we know how passionate you are, putting people in the Hall of Fame, showing us onions, and we know all the awesome moments you've seen on the court. But how much pleasure do you get to see these young people succeed even off the court?
To watch young people succeed and to try. And even though they may get knocked down 9 times, they get back up to 10. And I mean, it's just like a ball player. You're not going to make every game-winning shot. But you know what? The ball's in your hands. You try. If you make it, fantastic. Enjoy the moment. It's glory like no glory. And yet if you miss, you walk off that floor and you feel you've let yourself down, your team down, but then you have to have a short memory because there's a game in 24, 48, 72 hours. Well, the same thing can be applied to young people who are just looking for that break, and they send the link out and resume and audio and video clips, hoping that just one company, one station, one web outlet believes in them. And you get no and no and no, and you get beat up mentally, and you wake up and you wonder, is it worth it? Well, it is worth it. because this is going to build through adversity strength and courage and perseverance. And so when young people do extremely well and you've got a skill set and you bring the enthusiasm, and I see that in front of me, okay, every day from young people that I remember when I was mentoring them either in college or just coming out of school, and you see young people getting it done, especially whether they're, you know, African American, whether they're Asian, whether they're women, whether they're young adults, and they just decided to make that switch in life from being an insurance salesman to a broadcaster. I think it's great. And I think the fact that now we're having more women, more minorities involved, and the inclusion of people, it's great. So, you know what? I always put others ahead of myself. I want people to succeed. And as I said earlier, we're all in this together.
It's something that anybody who's followed you both either in your career or you're lucky enough to, you know, wake up in the morning to see your social media postings. And we know that this isn't something that you just say nonchalantly. You do believe in the positivity. And, you know, I wonder how is for somebody like you, let's say as of this recording, the Bulls on the court, bunch of good guys. We've talked about it. We can be critical at times, but we always make sure to respect the players on the court and knowing the hard work that they put in and the time and the effort. But when you have, let's say, stressful moments like we've seen at the United Center or on the road, and you try to stay positive, how important is it to make sure you bring that positivity? You also keep a critical mind when you are on the air, when you do bring in people from their living rooms or their cars into the United Center or to the away building, when you're with Bill, when you're talking to the staff over at 670, how important is it to kind of keep that vibe, even though things can be tough both on and off the court?
Number one, you always have to have the integrity of the broadcast. So, for example, let's talk about when the Bulls are going through a tough stretch. Number one, the game is 48 minutes, and these players are so elite that, as we've seen now, almost on a nightly basis, you can pick any night, let's say a 5-6 NBA games, and I will call out anyone who disagrees with me. You can go to any one night in the NBA and find at least one game where a team had a 50, 20 plus point lead and lost the game. So what does that tell you? It tells you, number one, because we always say, oh, that team blew a 20-point lead, instead of, hey, you know what, that team never gave up. And this team that came from behind showed character and resiliency. And they did it because things clicked. They found the right combination on the floor. Maybe the coach went with 3 reserves, and those reserves just, you know, morphed into playing hoops for like an 8 to 10 minute stretch where they got it done. So the way I look at it is, I never discredit the opposition. I never ever bury a player personally, and so I marvel at their talent, but you have to have the integrity of the broadcast. So if the Bulls are playing poorly, you state it and you let it go. It never becomes personal, ever. If a player is having an 0 for a 9 night, you just say, hey, you know what? This player has missed 9 straight shots. You know, he hasn't made a field goal. He's 2 for 2 from the foul line, having a tough night at the office. Because, listen, I don't care if it's Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Oscar Robertson. You can go right down the list. Everybody has experienced one of those nights. The great ones, fewer than most, but nonetheless, they've experienced those. So when I'm on the air, that's my mindset. But as far as the passion of the game and the love of the game, that has never ceased. I really believe this, and I mean this sincerely. I still get pumped up for a game, whether the Bulls are 10 over 500, 10 under 500, as I would calling an Eastern Conference Finals game back in the day with Derek against LeBron when the Bulls played the Heat. That's my mojo, because I love the game so much, and I love communicating that passion for Bulls ball and the NBA to our listeners.
So, Chuck, when I tell you it's been a pleasure, it's an understatement. When I tell you the honor between Marver, Devin, Paul, and myself, it's an understatement of how much it means to us that you joined us on the show. And just to give you everybody an idea who's listening to us here on the Sports Cubicle, always a pleasure. You know, we've seen the stories come out from Chuck, and this is a wonderful a culmination of all the things that Chuck has done. And growing up, listening to you, I've always thought that I'm like, man, this is kind of cool that this guy from Toronto, from Canada, who has no connection to Chicago, is so like, who loves the Bulls. Like, he's really good at his job. He's really showing emotion. Little did I know, thanks to this, how infused you are in Chicago media, something that I am a dork of. And my admiration and just the coolness factor of already one of the coolest dudes to call the game, one of the nicest guy who never stops dancing, was actually a fixture on Chicago radio and the landscape. Always a pleasure. Just can you tell us, the audience that are learning new things about you? You know, every day there's a new fan, a new listener. This book, I mean, this story, how did it kind of come together, and where can everybody kind of get a chance to read it?
So here's the story. You can go online, Chuck Swirsky, thebook.com, very simple. Chuck Swirsky, that's Swirsky, Chuck Swirsky, thebook.com. And so I've been approached a few times over the last few years about a book, and it really hasn't been the right time. And then this past summer, I said, you know what? I'm going to write the book. So this was, every word is mine. I didn't have a ghostwriter. And so in my words, I kind of got into my life story, my history with my family, how I became involved in sports, especially like non-sports, because I was not very athletic at all. I was horrible, got cut from every team I tried out of CYO, the Catholic Youth Organization, where my mom would put $10 down, and I was on the basketball team and name only. And then he would put me in the game with 1 second to go. Story about my career. I've been very, very blessed to be an NBA broadcaster for 25 years. I started with the Raptors, was able to call Kobe Bryant's 81-point game with the Lakers and Raptors, and, you know, was around for the Super Bowl 20 with the Super Bowl Shuffle in that group with the Bears in 1985. I mean, I've seen a lot. I've done a lot. I happen to be at the right place at the right time. But I love what I'm doing right now. And Lord willing, if my health, you know, continues to be what it is, which is terrific. But I want to keep doing this as long as the Bulls will have me.
I cannot wait to see what the future holds, because I know for a fact that at one moment in time, Chuck Swirsky will call an NBA Finals with the Chicago Bulls in it. And God willing, with all the help in the world, they will win one as well with a healthy Chuck Swirsky. And please let Billy be around too, because though you two have the greatest chemistry in the world. And let me just tell you this: you talk about your impact in Chicago media as a going to be 33-year-old Latino man. You have made an impact in my life, from Pat Hughes and Chuck Swirsky and Jeff Joniak. These are the voices of my generation, and it has been the voice track of many times going to practice, coming home from practice, pasta parties, watching the games, and now to be able to have this conversation with you on our show, and to see not only, again, are you giving people stories, an awesome storyteller, but you're doing it for a great reason. You're doing it for charity, and it just goes to show the type of person Chuck Swirsky is. Chuck, thank you so much for taking time for us. We appreciate you.
You mentioned Europe, and Spanish radio right now is involved in so many outlets in professional and college athletics, and I'm glad that we have Hispanic radio, and we have Spanish-speaking broadcasters who are young, who are vibrant, who want to get involved in our business, because our business needs this. And I am so thrilled that now we have come to a point in our communication society, in our sports society, where we have recognized the Latino community. And so I'm glad that you mentioned this, and I applaud you, and just keep grinding, my man.